This was a very dark and heavy episode of Samurai Jack Season 5. I knew that this series would have a lot more mature themes because of how the writer of the series is dedicating this to the original fan base, and the original fan base, since this series came out so long ago, are now either going to college or doing jobs and stuff. Obviously, we are used to more adultish things, adult themes. However, I did not think I would ever see Jack contemplating suicide in Samurai Jack. Now, I knew we were going to have violence. I knew we were going to have blood, death, and stuff like that. It never came into my mind that Jack would actually be thinking about killing himself. Damn. Like, it really fits with this series when you think about it and what Jack has been through, but it just once again shows you what this series is trying to go for and who it's aimed at. It's aimed for the older fans, like the original fans of the series, not just newcomers, but the original fans of Samurai Jack. So, let's talk about that. We already know that Jack has PTSD. We found out about that in the last episode, the first episode of Season 5. We got to see Jack talking with himself. He was just straight up crazy, and this man was just going loco. And this episode, we dive a little bit more into his PTSD and what he has been trying to overcome for these past 50 years. Now, we gotta take this in perspective, okay? Since this is trying to be a more adultish show now, it's not meant for children, we gotta look at it as adults now. Jack has been wandering the land for 50 years, not aging, and as we know, his main objective is to take down Aku and eventually save everybody in the past, present, and future. That is his objective, and also go back to the past. And because of this, and because of all the time portals being just wiped out, and he can't go back anymore, and he can't age, obviously, it feels like his goal is just far out of reach. He can never achieve what he wants. And he's been wandering for the past 50 years and no destination in sight because he doesn't know what to do. And he doesn't even have his sword anymore to take down Aku. And so all these things after, wandering around for years, obviously this is going to mess with your mind. It's going to get to you. It's going to eat you alive, and you're going to be thinking about it constantly. At first, maybe 5 years pass and you might not think much about it, but time eventually just eats the mind away, and that's what's happened to Jack. So much time has passed, even if his body doesn't age, his mind is aging. You clearly see it. You see signs of it in this episode when he's thinking about everyone, and he even argues with himself. When you see the younger Jack from the previous 4 seasons of Samurai Jack arguing with our Season 5 Jack, it just hits you. You're like, holy shit. We knew this man had PTSD. We knew he was kind of crazy because of everything, and he feels upset and bad because he hasn't been able to save anyone, and he's been doing nothing for the past 50 years. But now seeing him argue with himself, and he's pretty much contemplating suicide. Let's talk about that, okay? The younger Jack is Jack's psyche. That's his, self that pretty much has given up. And the Jack that we see in Season 5, he's arguing with his past self. His past self's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You might as well just give up. There's just no point anymore. Just give the fuck up. You might as well just kill yourself. Well, at least that's the only left thing available to you that's, honorable that you can actually do. And I'm like, yo, when he mentions that, and you see, you could at least join your people and all that and get to see them again, I'm like, oh my god, Jack is straight up talking about killing himself because that's, the only option available to him, because that's the only thing he really can do, because, like I said, he can't age, so that means he's going to live for all of eternity unless he gets killed, and on top of that, he has no way to go back, and he doesn't have a sword, so everything is lost. It's like he has no purpose at all, and he's in the rut right now. He's like, what do I do? And when his own mind is literally telling him to kill himself, you're like, holy crap, holy crap. It really just goes to show you how much trouble this man's been through for the past 50 years, what he's been trying to fight all these years, and the only reason why Jack continues to move forward is thanks to his sense of duty, and he holds on to his pride and sense of justice to continue to face Aku. If it was not for that, this man would have probably already have killed himself. And I mean, we already see signs of this with Jack, especially in the first episode, and it's very apparent now after seeing this episode. Let's talk about that. So in the first episode of Season 5, we know that the robot that Jack defeated, which is like, hey babe, and all that, fucking love that robot, the actual robot, he's like, I killed this village 2 days ago, I've been waiting on you and all that, what's took you so long? And when you see that scene, and you listen to that dialogue, you're like, wait a minute, if this would have been Jack in the first 4 seasons, he instantly would have been there to save that village. He would have saved that village as soon as he found out it was being attacked. But it took Jack 2 days to finally work up the courage to go over there, because once again, Jack feels like it's just pointless. He feels like everything is pointless, but at the same time, another half of him wants him to continue to do what he has been doing throughout all these years. He feels like if he dies, everything that he's done already is pretty much just GG, it's pointless. But if he continues to live, it's also pointless. And that's kind of the conflict that he is facing within himself, and it becomes even more apparent when you see last week's episode and you think about what that meant when he didn't go save the village instantly when he saw it burning in the distance. Now, let's also talk about the other scene in this episode. Besides Jack contemplating suicide, let's talk about the scene to where he calms himself down about everyone that he has faced is nuts and bolts. They're robots, they're machines that Aku has sent after him. And when you think about it, every opponent that Jack has faced or defeated, like killed and all that, in Samurai Jack the first 4 seasons, have been robots. And if you really look at it, Jack has never actually had to take someone's life. He's never had to legit kill someone. And this actually really pops up in your mind, and you're like, holy crap. What Jack did at the end of the episode is really going to mess with his mind. He already is having PTSD, he's arguing with himself about wanting to kill himself, and now he has taken someone's life, which is someone of his own kin. It's his people that he just killed. Now that we factor all that in, let's just think about what this also means, too, for the series. As we know, the first 4 seasons of Samurai Jack aired on Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network is for children. I'm not saying that all cartoons on Cartoon Network are, because there's been some pretty damn dark cartoons on Cartoon Network. However, because of censorship reasons and stuff that children cannot see, obviously, Samurai Jack in the first 4 seasons, since it aired on, Cartoon Network, the robots were there for censorship. There was never really anything with Jack killing someone because of censorship reasons. And I really love how this ties in with this new season of the reason why this is going to cause development for Jack, but at the same time now of why there is killing going on and why Jack is going to be taking someone's life, because now this is for adults, but at the same time, though, it adds development for Jack's character. So who would have known that something meant for censorship and for, lowering down the violence for children would actually serve as a major plot point in Samurai Jack Season 5 to give development to our character. That's pretty cool. I really love how that's being used, because once again, the reason why probably robots and stuff were being added into the first 4 seasons was because of censorship reasons. That's the whole reason. Obviously, Cartoon Network is not going to like it if you see, Jack cutting up people and shit, you see blood just splattering all over the place. Obviously, that's not meant for children. So now that we can actually see this, now we can see some actual development going on with Jack actually taking someone's life, but it makes sense now with how much this has affected Jack's mind. Every opponent he has faced throughout the entirety of Samurai Jack has been pretty much a machine. And so now with taking his first life, what is he going to do? Is this going to revive his fury to take down Aku? Or is he going to get even closer to walking off the cliffside and killing himself? That is the big question I have because of the way this episode was laid out. Now, besides Jack's, psyche and what's going on in his head and all that, let's talk about the second half of the episode, which, oh my god, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It just, seeing how amazing that second half was just goes to show you how much love and passion is being put into Samurai Jack Season 5. There was some amazing fighting scenes in the original Samurai Jack first 4 seasons. Like, there's some really good episodes, some really good fights and stuff that just absolutely blew my mind as a kid. It was before I even got into anime or manga, and some of the stuff in Samurai Jack is still good to this day. I love going back and seeing some of these fights, and because of that, because of how great those fights were, obviously with time, there's going to be improvements with animation, art, and stuff like that. And this episode just goes to show you how the style of Samurai Jack is still there, but how much has improved in terms of animation and art technique compared to the original early 2000s a long time ago, over a decade ago. And seeing that entire second half of the episode, like I said, phenomenal. That's the first word that pops in my mind. The reason why is because, think about this real quick. The second half of the episode has no dialogue. Seriously, go watch the episode again for yourself. There is no dialogue in the second half of the episode. It's literally Jack running for his life inside of a tomb, trying to survive, and eventually taking the daughter of Aku's life, and then getting the fuck out of there. There's no dialogue. And even though there's no dialogue, you understand what's going on with the story. The way the art and animation is done on that scene, it still tells a very beautiful story and also manages to show what is going on in our character's mind without them even saying anything, without them even having their thoughts circling in their head on screen for us to hear. We understand what is going on in that scene, and that's why I'm calling it phenomenal. It's not just because of how beautiful the art was or the animation, but just how the story was told and the way the characters reacted to certain scenes really kind of show what was happening and how desperate these characters were. Jack running for his life, there has been a lot of moments throughout the first 4 seasons and now in this season now of Samurai Jack, with Jack running for his life, trying to save his own ass. It's happened before. However, out of everything I have seen, I think this is probably one of the most desperate times Jack has ever been. Like, he has never been this desperate of trying to save himself, but also running for his life. When you see this man hiding, and he's up in the roof and all that, and he comes out and he's sneaking around and all that, trying to figure out, and he gets ambushed and attacked, and he's fighting each individual daughter of Aku off, and eventually as he gets cornered, he has to run the fuck away, and he meets this big open chamber with a bunch of tombs. And when you look at this, you're like, yo, there's all these, like, little coffins all over the place, and you're like, damn, like, this is very dark. They've been fighting in, you know, this burial chamber for quite a while now, this, like, second half of the episode, and when Jack actually gets inside of a coffin, you actually see bones in the skeleton beside him while he's laying down. And just imagine how fucked up this is. Jack was lying with the dead in that moment. He was lying in a coffin next to a corpse to save his own ass. And that is just like, whoa. Did you ever think you would see something like that in Samurai Jack? Just Jack hiding in a coffin with a corpse to save himself. And when you see the scene, when he's just, you see how stressed he is. You can just tell by the way the art is done. He's very stressed. He's looking at this bug that's glowing, and eventually as he's getting more and more nervous and the light slowly flickering and all that, he jumps out of the coffin to save his own ass. And just that had so much tension in that scene. I was on the edge of my seat. I kind of already figured Jack would be fine in that scene, but still, the way the scene carried the tension and how I was just like, holy shit, what's gonna happen? Is something really bad about to happen? And Jack was just so scared, and when he got out of there and he was running for it, booking it, it just really hit you like, damn, this is a phenomenal second half of the episode. So, the final scene, Jack takes a daughter of Aku's life. He kills one of them. And as I already said, this is the first time Jack has actually killed someone, legit killed a person, and this is someone that is his people, his kin, and obviously this is going to affect him mentally. He's already showing signs that he's broken already, but now killing someone, that's going to really mess with his head, and I'm really curious exactly what will happen, the repercussions of this. I mean, it's not just Jack I'm curious about with how he's going to turn out, but also the sisters, the daughters of Aku. How are they going to react to seeing one of their sisters dead on the ground? Will this, you know, spike their vengeance to where they want to kill Jack even more? Or will they get scared of Jack and not want to mess with him ever again? I'm very curious about that. But then, let's also just talk about the scene with Jack's expression. As I've already said, the tension in the scene when Jack was hiding in the burial chamber inside of a coffin was already grim enough. But when Jack kills her, slits her throat, you see blood just gush, his instant reaction, his shock, he's like his face, he didn't know what to think, because usually when he kills someone, you just see sparks and wires pop out and all that. That's what we've seen even with the first episode of Season 5, and he's used to that type of reaction. But when he cut someone and he saw blood just squirting out, he didn't expect that. He's like, what? And when he removes the mask and all that, and he sees it, he sees the person, he's like, holy shit, I just killed her. And that scene, perfect. It could not have been done any better than what it was. So with all that being said, with the second half and all that, let's talk about the first half, which I should have talked about first, but I really wanted to talk about how phenomenal the second half of the episode was. So there was some symbolism in this episode as well in terms of the wolf and Jack. You see correlations between the wolf scene and Jack, how the wolf goes down to the left path and all that to try to kind of avoid danger, but eventually winds up in danger and fights these opponents that are completely stronger than the wolf and outnumber the wolf, but the wolf still kind of turns out on top. But thanks to, fighting these opponents, the wolf is injured and on death's door, which you see at the end of the episode, which is very similar to what happened to Jack. Jack has been stabbed, he's bleeding, but it's not just his body that's been fucked. His mind has been just torn, into tiny little pieces, thanks to what he did in this episode. So, there is a lot of symbolism between the wolf and Jack, which I really appreciate. Once again, more adult themes in the series that I really appreciate, and once again, I'm just so glad Samurai Jack is back, just to be able to see stuff like this. So, with all the dark and grim shit out of the way, let's talk about the funny stuff. The beginning of the episode, like the exact beginning of this episode, which focused on Aku. So, we got to see Aku for the first time in Season 5, and as we know, the voice actor of the original Aku passed away. May he rest in peace. And obviously, if you're wondering why Aku sounded different, it's because of that, because the original voice actor passed away, and so that's to kind of explain that. However, I do like the new voice of Aku. I mean, it's not as good as the original, obviously, but it does fit the character, so I'm not truly disappointed with that. I was kind of curious to see how Aku would sound, but I'm not disappointed. And overall, the personality that the new voice actor brings out to Aku's character, I feel like it does fit, especially when he's giving his own self-therapy. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, okay, that is some pretty funny and dark humor. It makes me really appreciate the series, because even though it's a very dark episode, it also still gives that comedy that Samurai Jack had a long time ago when I was a kid, because it wasn't just the badass fights and Jack just being an epic samurai that made this series good. It was also the comedy, because Aku, even though he's like, the shape-shifting god of evil, he had a lot of funny moments that made me laugh throughout the original Samurai Jack first 4 seasons, and seeing how he still has this life to him to where I can laugh and all that, I'm like, yo, I'm glad that Samurai Jack hasn't lost one of the things that really made it what it was, because honestly, I've already liked what I saw in the first episode. I liked what I saw in the second half, but I was kind of scared if, the comedy would have been lost in the series. Would it be trying to go too serious and not, go back to some of the things that made Samurai Jack so good? Can it do a good, mix between serious moments and comedy moments, which apparently this episode did a very good job with, because even though there was comedy, it wasn't actually comedy meant for children, because there was a very dark vibe from that scene. It was like very dark humor, because Aku was straight up going to a therapy session with himself. He was straight up talking to himself and just saying, like, I'm just so sad and all that. He's like, I thought, age would have killed my opponent, like time would have gotten rid of him, but apparently not. And that's just really interesting when you think about it. Aku thought, since he, closed all the time portals and stuff to go back to the past, that eventually Jack just would have succumbed to, time and died. But thanks to him not aging, Aku can't get that wish. Jack just won't disappear. He's going to live on forever unless someone kills him. So he's like, holy shit, like I thought he would die at a time, but apparently not. And he's like, I'm just so upset and all that. And he's like, what do I do? And then his own self is like, we don't use the word and all that. Don't say his name. This is a special place. No. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, it's a very grim and dark scene. Even though it's funny, it's just very mature. And it's meant for adults, obviously. Just the entire scene with Aku talking with himself and talking about Jack was funny, but meant for adults, obviously. That was not meant for children. I really am glad that it's not just the serious scenes that have matured, but also the comedy as well. The comedy is more focused on adults instead of children as well, which, don't get me wrong, I still like some childish humor as well, but I just love seeing also how much the comedy has aged too, not just Jack in the serious moments. So, well done, Samurai Jack Season 5, Episode 2. A phenomenal episode. Honestly, I don't think anything needs to be changed. It was that good of an episode. It was such a good episode. Even better than the first one. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Y'all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.